continuing our discussion on the big policy move that has been made by the Union Cabinet today. It cleared the idea of one nation, one poll. Remember, the NDA has spoken about it again and again and has been determined in its implementation. In fact, opposition leaders say that this is a move to kill India's federal structure and decimate regional parties. And now, to discuss this further, we are now joined by Madhavan Narayanan, senior journalist. Thank you very much, Mr. Narayanan, for joining us right here on ET Now. I want to first get your thoughts on this idea. Is this something that India needs? The government of India says that this will reduce the burden on the exchequer. This will curtail extra expenses. This will ensure continuity. And in fact, this will also cut voter fatigue, besides also ensuring that economic development of the country is not really hampered. While on the other side, you have opposition parties stating that this is an attempt to attract the federal nature, the federal structure of states. Where do you stand on this? Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know if my opinion matters at all, Sumita. I think we need to look at it in terms of the ground realities of India. And it's not about what the government says or what the opposition says. What matters is what the Constitution says. I think I heard the former Chief Election Commissioner O.P. Rawat on your show, and although I didn't catch the whole thing, the gist of it is very close to what I also want to say, which is that there are lots of hurdles to be crossed. Now, one thing I've noticed, I actually use the term that ever since Narendra Modi came to power, he has tried to presidentialize the parliamentary election by putting his emphasis on one individual as a representative of the party and the party as equivalent to the nation. So this is only an extension of that mindset where you're trying to presidentialize the system itself and not merely the election process, but trying to make it all in the name of economics. Now, in economics, we have something called the trade-off. You know, if you have high inflation, you can have low employment. You know, there is an unemployment versus inflation situation. So we could argue that political freedoms are being curtailed in the name of economic efficiency in lowering the cost. And if you look at the fact that we are a multicultural, multi-religious, multilingual, multi-ecological country, then holding elections together basically robs the country of some of the diversity issues. But this sounds very philosophical and poetic. We have to look at the fact that the Constitution itself is fundamentally parliamentary system one. So parliamentary system, by definition, allows for flexibility. You can, you know, at one extreme, there is even this question of conscience voting, which is even people within a party can vote against a law unless there is a whip. So if we are talking about that level of liberalism, from there on to passing on to the other extreme.
And so, like I was speaking, you know, to Mr. Rawat, Mr. Narayanan, that's yes, so several constitutional amendments will need to be made. It will need to be cleared by both houses of the parliament. And of course, you know, it really follows a lot of discussion and debate and deliberation as well. But let me also get in your points on some of the questions that are being raised so far as specific situations are concerned. Now, what really will happen if state and central governments collapse mid-tenure, or if a government collapses, then, you know, will president's rule be imposed for the remaining period? All of those questions still persist. Can you help us understand, you know, the complexity of these issues with respect to the policy move?
Thank you for asking that question. The fact is that the issue is so complex that let me go back to 1977, when after the emergency, Indira Gandhi lost the central elections to the Lok Sabha. And immediately, I think if I recall right, that time there was acting president B.D. Jatti, and he actually signed a peculiar decree, I think. Several state governments were dismissed by the government on the ground that the Congress had lost its mandate in the Lok Sabha elections, and therefore state elections also need to be, you know, held in light of that. So that was a very controversial decision, because under the Constitution, you can lose Lok Sabha elections, but your party can continue to be in power in state elections. That is already happening. For instance, Congress governments continued after Modi won, even in states where Congress had lost the 2014 Lok Sabha elections. Therefore, this is a typical thing that will go to Supreme Court. We have, as a country, we've reached a point where even a rape in a hospital, Calcutta hospital like the RG Kar hospital, has reached the Supreme Court. So, if even a law and order issue in a state can go to the Supreme Court, just imagine a matter of
Yes.
constitutional propriety involving things like the Article 356, which involves dismissal of a
Yes.
government. Now, what are the principles or
Yes.
laws under which any state government will be
Yes.
overruled by the central government? Forget about opposition talking about federalism spirit being conquered. That's all very philosophical. Constitutionally, there is sufficient federalism on several issues. We are not a federal country in the sense, say, United States are. We are a union of India,
Okay.
union
Okay.
of states, but we are not the United States of India. In spite of that, there is sufficient
sir,
elbow room. And at the moment, please let's
sir,
look at the
those
ground reality. Yeah, we have Telugu Desam and JDU,
Yes,
which are
sir.
regional parties
Yes, sir,
supporting the
and those
government.
issues
I
will
don't-
need to
I
be
feel
looked
like
at,
the
and of course,
uniform.
we
Let
do
me
hope that the
end with
government
the
will factor
punchline.
that. Yes.
Yeah, but this is the fluid situation, Subhita. We have to understand. It's possible
Go
for a
ahead.
moment to imagine that the constitutional amendment, कहते हैं ना, फर्ज कीजिए, the constitutional one or two amendment may even be passed by the parliament. But I am not I have my doubts on whether the state level ratification can be bypassed. I have seen in the news items that state level ratification may not be necessary. I don't see how it can be not necessary. Somebody might go to Supreme Court on that issue. And so, like the Uniform Civil Code, the One Nation, One election plan is only an attempt to sloganize for political imagery a deeply constitutional issue, which involves by force not only a two-thirds majority of parliament, but also possible ratification
Right, sir.
in states, political ramifications
Right, sir,
involving.
and definitely a very valid point that you've made about helping of course the party politically. And let me on that note also take a look at Jammu and Kashmir. Of course, the electoral process returned to Jammu and Kashmir after 10 long years. It's a high stakes battle that's playing out after the abrogation of Article 370. Several parties have been against that Article 370 abrogation. With the voter turnout that we've seen, it was pretty impressive. What does that really say about who really has an advantage in J&K? What does it really look like to you?
Well, as an Indian, Sumita, let me first heave a sigh of relief. I like to see good electoral turnouts in Kashmir because it shows that democracy is alive in some way, with citizens increasingly having faith in the democracy. But that doesn't say anything about the outcome of the elections. And if I may stick my neck out, I must say that BJP has played its cards very cleverly because apart from the National Conference and the PDP, now you have Engineer Rashid's unknown party, and also we have Ghulam Nabi Azad as a player. So there seems to be a potential case for political chaos in Kashmir. And therefore, as long as it is within the constitutional limits and with active citizen participation, it's a good sign for democracy. But I cannot guess the outcome of this election because this is an extraordinary election in which, Jammu is a different region that stays with BJP, but the valley seems divided. But there is a chance that if the votes go in favor of national conference, then that is a moral victory for the Article 370 protagonists, which is significant. So I would be looking at it from an Article 370 point of view, which is that if there is a clear verdict, then we can see it as a verdict against the abolition of 370 as a state. But otherwise, it's all about the spoils of power and who gets what and how spend the money. And essentially, it's also a
Right.
very interesting phase because there is a very documented point that there are lots of youths in Kashmir who are dissatisfied, but no longer anti-India, because they see that the future is better with India because
Yes,
so,
sir. In fact, I was just coming to that point and we are completely out of time. So I have to ask you that one last question. When you mention about the youths, there have been issues that we've been speaking about related to jobs, related to inflation, development even. Those are definitely the concerns. But, sir, there were concerns that democracy has been subverted in the region after the abrogation of Article 370. Now, those concerns have really abated given the kind of voter turnout that we've seen today.
yeah, I think that is why I was nuantically reading into the verdict. I am happy that there is a democratic verdict, but the shape of the verdict will tell us how much of it is related to anger with 370 and how much of it is taking it as in its stride, so that it doesn't matter as long as there is voting and there is administration. It doesn't matter whether it's 370 or not, because 370 has been de facto in limbo. It was a necessary tool at a time of Pakistan being a very major international diplomatic player. Now, a lot of things that was been morally resolved in some way, but this is a proof of that, the fact that there is a turnout high. But one important
Absolutely.
thing is
so that sense of security,
autonomy,
has
do
really come
matter
into
in any
Jammu and
federal
Kashmir.
structure.
Yes.
Sorry? Degrees of autonomy matter. And to the extent that the 370 protagonists win in the current round of elections, you will see it as an implicit demand for autonomy from the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which is fine under the constitution.
Yes. Definitely, sir. And very valid point made. And since we're completely out of time, I'll have to wrap, this edition of India Tonight right here. Thank you very much once again for sharing your thoughts on these two crucial stories that have been playing out today, ladies and gentlemen.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.